The markets just closed, and wow, what a closing. The Dow crossed 50,000, finishing the day up more than 2%. All three major indices closed up. And there's more big news this Friday afternoon. This from the Department of Justice.
If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you.
And who did they find? Well, 14 years after the deadly attack killing 4 Americans in Benghazi, the Trump administration tracked down and arrested a terrorist they say was involved. You will remember then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was infamously grilled before the House Select Committee on Benghazi. Congressman Jim Jordan was a member of that committee. He joins me in just a moment. Also ahead, it has been 6 days since no word. Nancy Guthrie still disappearing. TMZ got one of the alleged ransom notes. The TMZ's executive producer joins me to discuss the threats inside that ransom note. And overseas, a Russian general shot several times. Who's behind the attack? The Kremlin has an idea. But first, today a huge accomplishment for the Trump administration. It begins 14 years ago in the Obama administration. That was when there was a deadly attack on a United States compound in Benghazi, Libya. 4 Americans, including a U.S. ambassador, were killed as violent terrorists descended upon a U.S. consulate and another government outpost. No one has been held accountable for this terrorism against the United States and for these murders until now. Today, Attorney General Pam Bondi making an announcement of an arrest all these years later.
Today, I'm proud to announce that the FBI has arrested one of the key participants behind the Benghazi attack. Zubair al-Bakash landed at Andrews Air Force Base at 3 a.m. this morning. He is in our custody. He was greeted by Director Patel and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. Al-Bakash will now face American justice on American soil. We will prosecute this alleged terrorist to the fullest extent of the law. He'll face charges related to murder, terrorism, arson, among others. Let this case serve as a reminder. If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you.
FBI Director Kash Patel receiving that plane this morning at 3 a.m. at Andrews Air Force Base. He talked about the suspect's capture.
A foreign transfer of custody is executed by the FBI each and every time with special tactical assets, FBI agents, and, of course, medical personnel. And that was done in this instance. And the individual was apprehended and transferred over the night and into custody early this morning at an airfield. And so that's about all we can say on that matter.
And now a look back. It began on the 11th anniversary of 9/11. It happened September 11, 2012 in Benghazi, Libya. Militants armed with AK-47s and grenade launchers breached the gate of the U.S. compound in Benghazi and set buildings on fire. As I noted, 4 Americans were killed. Their names, U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens, U.S. Diplomat and Information Officer Sean Smith, also killed 2 CIA contractors, Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty. Both Woods and Doherty were former Navy SEALs. The Obama administration bizarrely tried to pin the attack on a spontaneous mob who were protesting a low-budget anti-Islamic film that had been posted online. The truth? This was not a protest about a movie posted online. It was a terrorist attack against the United States, and it was a well-planned terrorist attack. At the time, Hillary Clinton was our nation's Secretary of State, and thus her job included overseeing the U.S. mission in Benghazi, Libya. Because America was attacked and Americans were killed, the House impaneled a select committee to investigate what happened and how. In 2013, Clinton testified in front of a Senate committee. She was asked why the Obama administration tried to pin it on movie protests instead of a planned terrorist attack. Her response, which we're about to play, would haunt her for the rest of her political career.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. But and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Clinton, as Secretary of State, took responsibility for security lapses at the compound in Libya. Ohio Republican Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and former member of the Benghazi Select Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, joins me by phone. Good afternoon, sir. And what difference does it make?
Yeah.
It makes a big difference if it's a protest on a movie and a terrorist attack on the United States. Your thought?
Well, the difference it was political, because remember, she was running for president, and they couldn't have, as they're going into that campaign, she was Secretary of State. It was all about the Arab Spring and what they had done with throwing out Gaddafi in Libya. They couldn't have a terrorist attack happen. That was not good politics. If it's just some spontaneous thing because of some crazy video, that's one story. But a terrorist attack on their watch on the anniversary of 9/11, no, they couldn't have that. So they lied to us. And we know that they did. So that's why it was done for political reasons. And the bottom line is, prior to the attack happened, there was repeated requests for additional personnel, additional safety, additional protection there at our facility, and it was denied because they had this picture they wanted to show the people, the American people, that what they were doing in their foreign policy was working, when in fact it wasn't.
You know, because I've been around the cable news for a long time, I actually spent time in the home with Doherty's mother, Barbara, and she's no longer living. But, you know, what a heartbreak for these families, because first they believe the government's lying to them as to the cause. And secondly, as you noted, is that there was a request for greater security that was apparently obviously ignored.
Yeah, it was. And you're right, Mr. Doherty, Mr. Woods. My wife has gotten to know Tyrone Woods' widow. Good people who fought so hard for our country and defended and protected, and were the reason. Their courage, their actions were why so many Americans were actually, ultimately got out of there alive. And of course, we lost a great ambassador as well. So this is what happens when you have I just think a false way of looking at foreign policy, and don't frankly project the strength and that you see from the current White House. But it was all done for political reasons, and of course, we know the consequences.
You know, I thought it was odd back then, and I've sort of forgotten it over the years, exactly what happened. But this went on for a number of hours, this attack, because there were two attacks that were done, is that it was Secretary Clinton and I think the CIA Director Petraeus or DOD, I don't remember which, but President Obama, there weren't any reports where he was. It was those people were trying to run it from the State Department and the CIA or the Defense Department. And I don't know where President Obama was during that time. It was weird.
No, it was kind of strange, and you wonder if he, how much he engaged, if at all, in trying to rescue Americans. You wonder why no planes really ever took off headed towards Benghazi to assist and help the people who were under attack. But people like Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty, they fought with so much courage. And again, because of their actions, so many others were saved. But it should have never happened. And we all know that. And again, it's always easy. The other side, or some people will say, Monday morning quarterback, and, after the fact, you can always say this. But there were repeated requests. We need more people. This is a dangerous place, because this is one of the key things we learned when I had the privilege of serving on the select committee.
Well, look, nobody intended for that to happen. I mean, Secretary Clinton didn't, nobody did. But the thing that bothered me is that why don't you tell it to us straight? I mean, you just tell us what happened instead of having us go through all the hoops of trying to find out what did happen. It wasn't the movie posted online that provoked a bunch of people who getting mad. But they even had National Security Advisor at the time, Susan Rice, went around on the Sunday morning shows the first Sunday after that, and she went around and pitched that story too. Yeah,
because Hillary Clinton didn't want to do it. She didn't want to go on 5 different networks like Susan Rice did and mislead the American people. And I always say, the American people, we're big boys and girls. We pay your salary. Give it to us straight. Give us the facts. Give us the truth. That's what we're entitled to. But they didn't do that. And again, it was driven by politics. Hillary Clinton wanted to be the next president. They had this approach to foreign policy, particularly the Arab Spring and what they were doing in the Middle East, and their decision to take out Gaddafi. They couldn't have this narrative out there, so they literally tried to blame it on a video, and then they tried to say, well, we know we really didn't. And of course, there was that famous line that you played, Greta, where she said, well, you know, what difference does it really make? Well, it makes a lot of difference because we, the people of this great country, are entitled to the truth. And frankly, the family members of the folks who lost their lives, gave their lives for our country, they deserve the truth as well.
Well, there is, I just will say one last thing. I'm going to take the last word on this. There are some reports that Susan Rice, who did make that stupid statement on those Sunday morning shows, that she was hung out to dry, but she was taking the report from the CIA, and it wasn't, you know, and she believed the CIA, but whatever. Anyway, we finally got somebody in custody. Chairman Jim Jordan, thank you, sir.
You bet. Thanks for all your good work, Greta. Take care.
Coming up, it's been 6 days since Nancy Guthrie vanished. Now her son is speaking out. TMZ received one of those alleged ransom notes. Their executive producer joins me when the record continues.
Information. Truth. Is power. Is freedom. Is money. Is health. Is Newsmax. Millions watch it. So can you. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sonobello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sonobello.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call or go to sonobello.com right now.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Balance of Nature is a wonderful product. Whether you're a teenager or whether you're older, you don't have to be in your 70s to take the product. I recommend it to all of my friends. I'm very grateful that I started on Balance of Nature.
Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements today. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. That's 1-800-246-8751. Don't wait. Now's the time to take action.
It is day 6. Nancy Guthrie needs daily medication to live. We're told time is running out. Yesterday, Nancy Guthrie's son, Cameron Guthrie, released a video. Like his sister Savannah, Cameron pleads for his mother's safe return. Here's that video in part.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
There are 2 alleged ransom notes. The deadline for the first one was yesterday at 5 p.m. That has obviously passed. And now, according to TMZ founder Harvey Levin, who allegedly received one of the 2 ransom notes, the second deadline is set for this Monday. And according to Harvey, this deadline is much more consequential. TMZ executive producer Charles Latibeaudiere joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Hey, Greta. How are you doing?
Very well. Tell me, why is this one more consequential? Can you tell me the second ransom note, or the second deadline?
The second deadline, you know, we're not, we had a conversation with law enforcement, and there are things in the letter that we don't want to reveal yet, that they don't want to come out. But the best I can describe it, Greta, is just that the terms change on that second deadline. And yes, it's certainly more consequential, the terms for the second deadline. And that is why you heard the tone of the news conference with the police and the FBI yesterday. That's why the tone changed. That's why you have the family now posting these videos, trying their best to make contact with the kidnappers, who, to this point, have only communicated with them through the media. The letter that was sent to us and also to 2 local news stations in Tucson, and that's it.
When you say the letter is sent to you, is it a physical letter that showed up at TMZ, or is it an email?
No, it was an email. I misspoke. That's my old school brain. But yes,
Mine
it was
too.
an email. It's an email that came into through our tip line, and to my understanding, that's the same thing that happened at the Tucson stations. That it was an email that came in on their tip line. So there's nothing you can. It's completely anonymous when it comes in through your tip line. You only get the information that's in there, and they used a made-up email and apparently used a VPN, because when we tried to trace the IP address, there's nothing valuable that came up there. But we shared all that information with law enforcement, and it's fair to say that they are, we've been saying all along this is an alleged ransom note, but it certainly seems like law enforcement and the family are at least approaching it as if it's real.
Have you seen the other notes so you can compare the language? So it seems like it could have come from the same person. Is there anything to suggest it came from the same source?
Oh, it's the same exact note that went to all three places. It's the same exact note. Everything is identical. They just sent it to these three places, which is interesting and odd, I think, because you send it to TMZ, that's a national outlet, so you'd think maybe they'd send it to other national outlets. There's some reason that they went to these two local stations in Tucson, and I personally, I think, and this is not based on any evidence or anything in the note, I think it means that we're dealing with someone who is in the Tucson area, is familiar with those stations, and that's why they sent the ransom note to them as well.
You know what I think is the most peculiar part of the whole investigation? I mean, the thing that I focus on besides the ransom notes is that at 1:47 a.m. the doorbell camera was disconnected. So whoever disconnected it went to that spot and knew that was to be disconnected. There's no indication that, at least as far as the police saying, is that there was any breaking and entry. So the person was either inside or granted admission to the home, or sneaked in when that garage door went up. I mean, so it suggests to me that it's not just so totally random. It's someone's been watching her or knows her.
I get what you're saying, Greta. It certainly seems like someone who has been, I don't want to, casing her home, that they've been observing, and they knew what to take out when they walked in there. When the police laid out that timeline, you're right. At 1:47, the front camera is disabled. Then at 2-something, there's software picks up motion within the house, but there's no video. And then you have Nancy's watch being disconnected. So those three things, it almost seems like they moved with precision. They knew what they had to knock out. We also know that there was a damaged floodlight in the backyard. I don't know, police have not said one way or another if that was damaged just before or if it was damaged in the commission of this crime.
Well, it also suggests that whoever was there might have been in the house for a long time. By a long time, she gets home at 9:48, and there's no sign of any breaking and entering, and the doorbell is disconnected at 1:47. It's several hours later. So whoever was there, at least it suggests to me, was inside that house for a long time. When you're inside that house, you're dropping your DNA every place, your hair, your fingerprints, every place.
Yeah, that would certainly be something I'm sure the authorities are looking at. As for whether there was breaking and entering, I know that the sheriff was asked that several times during yesterday's news conference and at previous news conferences. Up to this point, he is yet to confirm or deny. He said, we are not talking about whether there's forced entry. So, I get your point that is certainly got to be in play, that this person was lying in wait in the house. But there's a reason, I think, why the police won't say whether there is signs of breaking and entering. And I don't know if that means they know the person was in the house or they know the person wasn't, and they just don't want to say at this point.
Well, they had to take her away in a vehicle of some sort, too, and there's been no record yet of what that might be. Charles, thank you. Say hi to Harvey for me, will you?
I will, absolutely, Greta.
Thank you. Coming up, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is challenging the House Oversight Committee. That when the record continues.
O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like life was moving on without me. Then I found a chance to let in the light.
Discover Caplyta. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor how Caplyta can help you let in the light. Find savings at Caplyta.com.
Let's face it, folks, car repair costs are not going down anytime soon. In fact, they're only getting worse. Protect your hard-earned dollars with a money-saving plan for your out-of-warranty vehicle with one call to CarShield. Plans offer protections on big items like your car's transmission, engine, AC, and thousands of parts and systems. Call now. Waiting could cost you thousands.
Call CarShield now for your free quote and to lock in your rate with their price lock guarantee. Call 800-213-0458.
You have seen the false headlines about Israel and the influencers spreading lies. The consequences are devastating.
Radical Islamists supporting regimes have launched a multi-billion-dollar media campaign aimed at convincing American youth to hate Israel.
Friends of Zion is fighting the propaganda head-on. For the first time in history, more than 1,000 American pastors and leaders have gathered in the Holy Land. This is not a political movement, it is a spiritual one. A generation is being called to stand for truth.
That Israel that you see on social media is not what it is.
We need to get the story out.
We saw the faces, we felt the emotions.
If this was in our neighborhood, this wouldn't be allowed to stand.
Visit friendsofzion.org to join us at this crucial time and watch the full story of 1,000 American pastors on this journey of a lifetime.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is calling for transparency. Yesterday, Clinton posted on X, quote, "For 6 months, we engaged Republicans on the Oversight Committee in good faith. We told them what we know under oath. They ignored all of it. They moved the goalposts and turned accountability into an exercise in distraction. So let's stop the games. If you want this fight, Congressman Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing, cameras on. We'll be there," end quote. And by we, she means her husband, former U.S. President Bill Clinton, and herself. Last month, the couple snubbed a subpoena to testify before the House Oversight Committee. That committee is in possession of documents from Epstein's estate and wanted to interview the Clintons and others. When the Clintons refused to testify, the committee then pushed to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress. But then the Clintons agreed to talk to avoid being held in contempt of Congress. So now, House Oversight Chairman James Comer has scheduled former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to appear before the committee on February 26, and former President Bill Clinton to appear on February 27. But the question is, will Chairman Comer accept the former Secretary of State's request for public hearings, or will Comer insist on talking to her behind closed doors? I know what I think. I think her testimony should be in public, not behind closed doors. That's transparency in government. Today, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace said this regarding the Clintons' upcoming testimony.
For 6 months, both her and Bill Clinton evading the Oversight Committee. They were the ones that were playing games with us. This is just part of the process. This deposition, part of it under oath, sworn testimony. And if the chairman decides he wants to make them come public in the future, then he has the option to do that too.
Arizona Congressman, member of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Andy Biggs joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And as you might have heard, is that I don't understand. You know, the American people want transparency. If she comes and testifies before the committee in the public, she will take an oath. You get to ask whatever you want, and you can even set the rules. So why wouldn't this be done in public so the American people could see this?
Well, Greta, as you know, there is no guarantee that they'll come in even now when they say they'll come in, right? I mean,
That's a different issue.
We moved the date for them twice. We told them to come in. But I'm going to tell you, if she wants to testify publicly, that's fine. But I first want the deposition, and here's why. When you come in for the deposition, I have multiple areas I want to ask questions of. When you come in for the hearing, it's a 5-minute run. Everybody gets 5 minutes to ask her questions. And guess what? All they have to do is filibuster and run the clock out, which we see them do all the time. And I would say her offer is an additional prevarication. I want the deposition first. I want to ask the questions. I want them to answer them. I'm okay with releasing the transcript and then bringing him in publicly, and we'll continue the discussion, asking him publicly.
That's actually, though, doubling up, because you all can huddle together and get your questions together, the members of Congress. I get the 5-minute rule, but I assume the rules, perhaps they could be changed, or you could do 3 days of hearings, just keep her there. So I just, it looks like, it does, to me, who likes transparency so much, and I've done depositions, is that if you have hard questions, you can just put them to her. Like, the first one would be, I assume, do you know Jeffrey Epstein, or did you know him? That would be a good question to start with, would it not?
Yeah, that may be the most appropriate question to start with, Greta, but you and I both know. I've done depositions, I've done trials. This is, a congressional hearing is very different than a deposition. In a deposition, you can keep people there until all the questions are exhausted. In a hearing, it is not so. In a hearing,
can't you do
you're going to have to go in and try to change.
Can't you do 2-3 days of hearings?
Greta, you know this.
Is
You'd have to change the rules.
Are you only allowed one day?
And that means you have to get the Democrats on board and everybody to change the rules.
All right. Okay. I think the Democrats probably side with her on this. I don't think you have to worry about them on this, because they all parties sort of team up with each other. But is there? I mean, if you do a deposition, it'll be probably 6 hours of deposition, right? Give or take.
Maybe longer. We've done them longer. We've done them over multiple days. Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything to prevent you from doing 6 hours of a congressional hearing and even doing them 2 or 3 or 4 days?
The only thing is the rules, because we have hard and fast rules. And I know you said that the Democrats will be supportive of them coming in. They were also supportive of a deposition. They voted, this is a bipartisan thing to have them come and do a deposition. If they want them to come in afterward, Greta, I'm just saying, why not do both? Why not do both?
All right. Well, no, I'll tell you why. Because you know what? Because there is a. First of all, I think it's probably a waste of time to do both, for starters, and we have to pay for members of Congress, and when you're doing that, you're not doing something else. But secondly, let me ask you, you said you have to change the rules. I get the 5-minute rule. Is there a rule that says that you can't do 2 days of hearings, 3 days of hearings, 4 days of hearings? Would that require a different rule?
Yeah, you would have to change the rules. You'd have to change the rules.
There is a rule that...
Because I don't know what we got,
rule?
40... It's a 5-minute rule, so that means...
No, not that. I got the 5-minute rule. We'll leave that one intact for purposes. But is there a rule that says that you can't have 3 or 4 days of hearings so that you can have your 5 minutes over, or you can have your half hour over a course of several days?
Well, you can't, if you've got a 5-minute rule and you have 40 people, that's 5 times 40, that's 200 minutes, Greta. That means that if you're going to go over 2 or 3 days, guess what? You're going to have to change the 5-minute rule.
Well, anyway, you and I can beat this a dead horse. I don't agree that you don't agree with me on that. But anyway, you'll say, well, we'll agree, we don't agree. Okay, so tell me, I've looked through a lot of stuff. She said that she's never met Epstein. You get to ask her that under oath. Ghislaine Maxwell was at her daughter's wedding with a boyfriend, not with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what questions are you interested in asking her?
Well, the area that I think people are going to ask her about is Jeffrey Epstein said that he set up either financially or with other ways, helped set up the Clinton Foundation, which, as you know, has been under investigation as well. So I think that there's some realistic questions that you can ask her about the Clinton Foundation, its establishment, the relationship it either did or didn't have with Jeffrey Epstein. And I think those are all relevant questions to ask.
Can you serve do you have the authority? I don't remember. Can you serve the Clinton Foundation with interrogatories or get the financial documents from there if you want to find out whether he's done any of this?
You could actually do that, and I think that on the other end of it, we've been asking the Epstein estate has provided lots of documentation, and it's in that documentation that we find evidence that makes us tend to believe that maybe the Clinton Foundation was, at least in part, begun with Jeffrey Epstein's help.
Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you. I do hope you have this out in the open because I'd like to see it. I'm very interested. Thank you, sir.
Me too. Me too. Thanks, Greta.
Thank you. Coming up, can Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner pull off the unthinkable? Find out what that is when the record continues.
Hey, it's Mark Lauder. My career's taken me from the State House to the White House, campaigns for mayor, all the way to President of the United States. I came to Newsmax to help our viewers get more than the headlines, beyond the spin. It's a perspective you'll only see on Newsmax.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports and your day becomes better and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
I've had the highest mountains, I've had the deepest river. I'll take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, I've been waiting to slide, the whole minute.
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand and official joint health supplement of the Westminster Dog Show.
In 2024, the IRS flagged nearly 2 million tax returns for possible identity fraud.
Someone stole my Social Security number and filed a tax return in my name, and I'm a CPA.
Your tax forms have all the personal information needed to commit identity theft, and you're not the only one with a copy, which makes you vulnerable. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats others could miss. And if your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it, guaranteed. Enroll now.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Will negotiations convince Iran to abandon its nuclear program? Today in Oman, in the Middle East, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump advisor and son-in-law to the president, Jared Kushner, held several hours of nuclear negotiations with top Iranian officials. President Trump has repeatedly put Iran on notice. He will order military action against Iran if a deal cannot be reached. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders joins me from Erbil, Iraq, where it is 12:35 a.m. Zach?
Hey, Greta, yeah, those talks lasted more than 6 hours. The Iranians report that both sides have agreed to meet again, time and place unannounced. Now, today's talks were indirect. The Omani foreign minister shuttling back and forth, passing messages between the separate rooms. Both sides started the day meeting with the mediating Omanis. You can see that the U.S. side had a military voice here and maybe sending a message to the Iranians. Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of the United States Central Command, or CENTCOM, he was there in the room. The Iranians did not have a military attaché on their side. As for what has been discussed, a reporter there for an Arab media channel described the progress as negotiating what the negotiations will look like. It didn't seem like we got very deep or that the depth of the discussion got very complex. But what we know is just based on what the U.S. has already laid out publicly, not from what we got from today. The U.S. has already put what they want on the table. The U.S. points nuclear program at top of the list, cutting the arms and financial support to regional proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, their ballistic missile program. And we just don't know, based on the public comments and the conversations we've had off the record, still, we don't know what the U.S. aims are for limiting the ballistic missile program in its entirety or its range for those ballistic missiles. That's just something that we're still waiting to see. Now, for the Iranians, all over their own state media, they've been saying that they're willing to limit uranium enrichment, but new reporting out by the Wall Street Journal just a few hours ago says that the Iranians went into these talks today and said that they're not willing to give up uranium enrichment in its entirety. The Iranians have said again today that they're going to continue to support what they call their axis of resistance, their resistance against Zionism, Israel, the United States. That means funding the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, continuing to support them. So that's another thing off the list. They also have said again today that their missile program is integral to Iran's defense and that they're not willing to discuss their ballistic missile program. But they did report today on state media that they made progress on lifting sanctions. They blamed the United States, Europe, the rest of the world for these sanctions. They say that's the reason why their economy is so poor right now. Since the talks have concluded, the U.S. has issued fresh sanctions on Iranian oil exports, and on state media, the regime is now warning that if there are excessive demands or adventurism, that would derail future efforts at diplomacy. So either way, Greta, we're still waiting to see any solid reaction from the U.S. side. The Witkoff team has been pretty quiet. We've been in somewhat contact, but it reminds us of those 5 rounds of negotiations that we saw in May and June before the Israeli strike, before the Operation Midnight Hammer with the U.S. hitting the nuclear installations across Iran. The U.S. was very quiet and wasn't trying to set the narrative in the media landscape, while the Iranians are out here after these negotiations trying their hardest to feed information and to set the narrative as to what's been coming out of these talks. The U.S. has been very quiet, or at least very happy to be quiet in these circumstances as these negotiations continue. What we are seeing from the Omanis, the ones that mediate these talks, well, the Omani foreign minister, he says that the talks were very serious and that they did identify areas of possible progress. Greta?
Zach Anders, thank you. There's been a trend of suspicious deaths involving Russian officials mysteriously falling to their deaths from windows. Well, today a Russian official was targeted in a different way. Senior Russian Army general in a Moscow residential building was shot several times. Russian officials say Lieutenant General Vladimir Alekseyev, who serves as the deputy head of Russian military intelligence, is currently in the hospital. His condition is unknown. The Kremlin says the shooter, after shooting the general, fled the scene. No one has been arrested. The Kremlin is blaming Ukraine for this attack. Thus far, Ukraine has not commented about the shooting. Since the war began back in February 2022, Ukraine has claimed responsibility for some assassinations of Russian military officers. The new shooting of a Russian general comes a day after Russian, Ukrainian, and U.S. negotiators finished 2 days of peace talks in Abu Dhabi. Reports are that the meetings ended with little progress in ending the war, but the talks did lead to a prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General and former U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Greta. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me jump to the end. How does this war between Ukraine and Russia end?
I don't think it does in the near term. I think when you look at Putin, Putin keeps talking about victory. He's strategically very weak. He's not winning this war. Russia's not winning this war. I think he's trying to get out of it. But when you look at what Russia has done with Ukraine, they haven't crossed the Dnieper River. They're not in Kyiv. They haven't taken Kharkiv. They haven't taken Odessa. He's talking a lot, and they're not attacking like we used to think about the Soviet Union with the Third Guards tank army with 500 tanks. The Third Guards army is probably 5 guys on a motorbike. So I think he's reached a point, Putin, is operating from weakness. And I think we need just to apply more pressure on Putin than we've currently applied. Well, I think we should apply at least the same kind of pressure we've applied to Zelensky. You know, we put a lot of pressure on Zelensky, and we've sent negotiators to talk to Putin, and Putin hasn't given anything. What has he given? He's given nothing. And when you look at it, I think he's trying to figure out a way to get out of this. He's not winning. I don't think he wants to be the new Nicholas II, which is who was the last Tsar in Russia. And I think he's worried about internally what's going to happen to him, sort of like what happened to the general that was just shot in the back in the residential building. So long term, I don't think, unless they go with this peace deal we're talking about having an economic zone, they can't give a defensible terrain. Ukraine, if they want to give up the Donbass region where they're at right now, what the Russians want, that's their last piece of defensible terrain. For a military guy, you would have to say, you want me to give up the fortified cities, the 3 of them, you want me to give up defensible terrain. I've been there. I'm probably the only American that was in government that's actually been on the ground and seen that region, and it's wide open. If you give him that, do you trust Putin? You think he's not going to do anything? He's got a clear shot to Kharkiv if he wants to go there. And I think the Ukrainians are going to say, fight for it if you want it.
And the other thing, too, is that, you know, even studying a little history, is back in, I think, 2014, when he annexed Crimea. And we thought that would be the end. And, you know, so Putin is not going to stop, I don't think, in whatever, if he gets something. But the other problem, and I don't know Putin, I've never met him, but looking at it from afar, is that, you know, that I keep hearing that he's losing all these people and that his economy is trouble, but is that I don't see that he cares about his people. And if he doesn't care about his people, it's just thinking about himself. And he's going to fight to the bitter end, and the bitter end is probably going to be an ugly one for him. But it's going to be a lot of ugly things happening to others in the meantime.
Well, you know, you look at, you know, I use this as a data point. The Soviet Union left Afghanistan after losing roughly 18,000 people. They lose that almost in a week. They have lost, the Russians have lost between 1.2, killed and wounded, 1.2 to 1.4 million. That's stunning. You would not accept that as a military officer in the United States or any Western power. So I think he's just throwing people at the problem that he's got right now, and he's trying to figure a way out of it. Because I don't think Ukrainians are going to budge. I think they're fighting very, very well. They're fighting on their own terrain. When you look at I talked to somebody today who's a pretty good military expert. He had his team on the ground near Pokrovsk, which is in the Donbass region, and they're fighting very, very well. And once they get through this winter months, and winter's been very hard on Ukraine, and they're getting pounded, their infrastructure. But once they start to get warmer weather, the advantage accrues to Ukraine, not to Russia. And if Russia wants to keep throwing people at it, I think their Ukrainians will accommodate that. They do need the weapon systems that we have given them, and the other European weapon systems are going to do it. One data point. This is not, you know, when Trump does say something that's very true with the president, this was not a war of his making. He inherited this war. He's done things that have been very positive. You know, he's talking to Putin. Biden didn't talk to Putin for 4 years. You have to talk to your adversary. So the fight's on right now for Zelensky. I remember saying to a lot of people that, even though they don't want to hear it, Zelensky, we haven't had a president since Abraham Lincoln who's had to fight on his own soil, an existential fight for his nation. Zelensky's doing that. He is a courageous leader. He has fought boldly, and he's got a good military behind him. They've done something to the Soviets, or the Russians, in 4 years that we thought we were going to have to do when we were in NATO, when I was in Europe in the 1970s. But we don't have to right now because Ukraine's doing it.
One quick question. What about all the children that Russia has taken? The children Russia's taken.
Yeah, and God bless Melania Trump for being a champion on this one. They're getting the children back, thousands of them that are there, and they do want to get them back. President Trump brought that up with Zelensky. They do want to get the kids back. It is a problem out there. They do, fortunately, know where a vast majority, thousands of them are, where they've been taken to. But every year that goes by, you don't get them back. That is a point that President Trump has brought out quite clearly.
Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, thank you, sir.
Thanks
nice
for
to see you.
having me,
Thank you.
Greta.
Coming out, the pressure of an NFL kicker. That one, the record continues.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sonobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobella a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
As a physician, I fielded many patient questions about ways to prevent cancer. And while we learn more every day, we're still not there. But it was my own cancer diagnosis that motivated my total immersion into the research with one goal: to keep my cancer from ever returning. The human body is incredibly capable of protecting us, but we have to do our part. We have to give it the ammunition it needs to fight. My studies led me to create SHIELD, the first of its kind protective nutraceutical system. SHIELD combines 10 high-dose natural ingredients to super boost your immune system and support cellular detoxification. SHIELD is just that, a shield of rare and powerful nutrients to support cellular health and to help fend off disease, so you can live life to the fullest.
Save $25 with promo code LIVE at victoryagainstcancer.com.
I'm an assistant principal at an intermediate school and a former softball and basketball coach. I'm also the father of 2 daughters. Keeping my students and children happy and safe is my top priority. But too many kids today are struggling, from stuff at home to falling behind in school and the overuse of devices. There are many factors contributing to the youth mental health challenge, and they should all be taken into account. We need comprehensive solutions that support parents and kids.
Not again. Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
The fastest growing wallet company in America. And you're both Marine Corps vets, right? I mean, this is so crazy cool that this has happened because there's a reason you have this crazy warranty.
We call it the unrivaled guarantee. If you lose your wallet, if it's damaged in any way, any kind of wear and tear, we're going to replace it for you for free. We want you to be satisfied and overly satisfied with your experience with us.
Proof Wallets, carryproof.com, all about the customer satisfaction, the customer experience.
When you make it, everybody loves you. You're a hero. But when you miss it, you're vilified. So ahead of this Sunday's Super Bowl, while everyone is talking about the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver positions, it may be the kicker who decides the game. Just think of that pressure. Former NFL kicker Jay Feely joins me. Nice to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too, Greta. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Okay, I mean, how do you deal with the pressure of being the kicker? I mean, to me, that's like the roughest job. The rest of the thing is sort of teamwork, but you're out there by yourself.
Greta, I'm going to tell you, it's worse being a dad because when my son was kicking in college, it was way worse sitting in the stands than it was being out there kicking. You know, but I think you have to have a process. You can't focus on the outcome. You have to focus on those fundamentals that are going to help you not allow your mind to wander, because you can start thinking about the implications either negatively or positively. If I miss this kick, we lose the game, I'm going to get vilified, my career might be over. All real scenarios, but you can't allow your mind to think about those and wander. So you have to discipline your mind in the moment. And then I don't think it's a coincidence, Greta, that there's so many kickers that have very strong faith, that are strong Christians, because that allows them to have a greater purpose. It allows them to know that, God is in control ultimately, and that helps you not worry and think about the implications and the pressure in that moment, and allows you just to go out there and trust that there is a greater purpose, and you're having fun, and you're doing what you love, and you go out there and you try to perform your best.
When did you start kicking? At what age? I mean, what was your training program for your years in the NFL?
I was a freshman in high school playing JV football, and they said, who can kick? And I was like, well, I can kick a soccer ball far. I'll try. And that's literally how it started. It was kind of by happenstance, and I was good at it. And then I kicked throughout high school. And when I got a scholarship to the University of Michigan to go there and to play there, that's when I really started focusing on it. But I spent 2 years after college working as a financial advisor before I got into the NFL. It was a weird journey, and that's not uncommon for so many kickers because there's only 32 jobs in the world, and there's no backups. And so guys play 15 to 20 years, and so really there's 2 or 3 jobs available for all the kickers coming out, and those guys that have been out for 3 or 4 years. So it can take a long time. You have to have patience, and really the definition of being a kicker is, can you handle failure? Can you handle the pressure, Greta, that you talked about? And then can you handle failure and not allow that to impact you going forward?
All right, how sophisticated is it, the person who holds the ball for you? I mean, is there a lot of leeway, or it better be perfect or else?
Yeah, it's kind of like your producers, right? Like nobody on air knows when they mess up and you look bad, and they're kind of the same thing, with your holder. They can mess up and you miss a kick and it's on you, but they know that they really messed it up and no one would even be able to tell. And it's a selfless job to be a holder, and those guys have to be working in concert with the kickers to make sure everything's right so you can go out there and you can do your job.
Well, my producers don't mess up. I'm the one that makes them look bad. But anyway, it's an aside. So I imagine when you hit that ball, do you know if it's going to go through the goalposts, or do you have to wait and see?
Yeah, pretty much. But that ball, when it's drifting towards the upright and you're kind of leaning and you're like, please come back, just hoping that it goes through the middle. It doesn't matter how it goes through, Greta. It can be ugly. It doesn't matter as long as it goes through those uprights.
Well, my husband's been complaining because back in 1965, there's a bad field goal for the Green Bay Packers against the Colts, which ended up so the Colts didn't win the championship, and he's still mad about it. But that's why they raised the goalpost so high. So I hear about that all the time. But I think, to me, kicking would be the most difficult job of all. So anyway, congratulations to you. What's the score going to be this weekend, by the way?
I think Seattle wins this game handily. I think they just have too much speed, too much power, and they're a physical team, and they're deep on all sides of the ball. And you got a young quarterback in Drake May going into this environment, and Sam Darnold's a veteran that's been around. It should be a good game. I hope it's a great game. Everybody wants a close game, and, we got all the friends coming over. That's what's so great about the Super Bowl is, you bring people, friends, family together. And hopefully it doesn't matter where they're from, and they love the game, and you have a great time. And, it's an American icon.
Jay Feely, thank you.
Good to talk to you, Greta.
Yeah. Cheapest ticket for the Super Bowl, by the way, $4,000. The most expensive is unclear, but is tens of thousands of dollars, and that ticket price does not include food nor drinks. So brace yourself for this. If you're hungry, there is a burger offered at the stadium this weekend. It weighs in at 3½ pounds. The cost, $180, but the burger can allegedly feed 4 people. For fans looking to enjoy a cheaper option, the hot dog is available for $20. It's called the Super Hot Chinatown Dog. Another option, this meal of steak and fries that cost $35. So after all that, what about drinks? Well, there are San Francisco-themed cocktails. They include an Irish coffee with ice cream, whiskey, and cold brew, and a drink with cotton candy on top. There's no word how much these drinks cost, but we do know that a beer will cost about $20. Coming up, a pair of porch pirates get away with a wild crime. It's really weird. That one, the record continues.
He lived fast, raced harder, and broke all the rules. From a troubled childhood to box office star and Hollywood legend. The untamed life of a cultural icon. Watch Full Throttle, the Steve McQueen story.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades. Elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
waking up in the hospital from all that stuff, there's got to be some kind of purpose for me here. I need to get over myself and start helping others. Total Towers came in and gave me and my family a home. I've regained quite a bit of independence from that amazing gift they've given me. I can't begin to thank Total Towers for everything they've done for our family. It means so much to us, a life-changing gift. Thank you. Please donate $11 a month at T2T.org.
The Wall Street Journal said silver could be the trade of a decade.
Eric Sprott said $250 to $500 an ounce is entirely possible.
Gold recently surpassed its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Silver's inflation-adjusted all-time high is $209 an ounce.
And silver went up 1,300% from 1974 to 1980. Silver's got a lot of room to run.
Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide. The only firm nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the No Fee for Life IRA. See how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver.
Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
I have 3 acres, 3 dogs, 2 horses, and it's kind of an ongoing all-day long event. I love it, and I wouldn't want to stop it for any reason. And I feel the same way about Balance of Nature. I would not stop Balance of Nature anyway. There would be no way. I know you wouldn't be able to force me to stop taking it. It is a no-brainer.
Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Set sail toward fast asthma relief with Brethora.
$300 for a refill?
Don't pay that. Use Single Care. Look up your prescription, show the coupon to the pharmacist, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Forget porch pirates. Oklahoma has pooch pirates. Looking for a dog biscuit? Instead, they stumbled upon drill bits, but these furry criminals got lucky. No charges were filed for their stealing. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. David, Newsmax. Have a great weekend, and cheer for the Packers.